Welcome back to the Communication Mastery Podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. In this season in 2026, we're going to spend some time looking back and replaying some of the episodes that some of you have asked about in your comments. And in between those, I'm going to be back with little snippets each week of helpful information that you can put into practice in your business, in your life, to help you grow your communication mastery. This week, I want to talk a little bit about the people that I see that need the most help with communication in the business world. Who needs help, but also how do they get that help? And when I look at the range of folks that I interact with, that I connect with through this podcast and through my business, primarily the area I see the greatest need for help is in mid-sized businesses, and in particular the operations teams, the people who are right at the hub of the whole business. Doesn't matter what the business is. It may be some kind of service industry, an insurance agency, or a lawyer's office, that kind of thing, or it may be more of a practical company, maybe a home services company, things like that. But in those mid-sized businesses, they've reached the size where you can't rely on everybody doing everything all the time, because they're too big for that, but they're still too small to be able to invest in corporate training and schedules of coaching that a bigger business would be able to do. And in those settings, the team leaders, the operations managers, the ones who are responsible for coordination between the different departments as those departments begin to grow within a business, that's where the gaps, where the glitches show up most often. That's where miscommunication causes the most trouble. You get mistakes made, you get misunderstandings that grow through the sales process or through the process of serving the customers and the clients. And also business owners in smaller businesses where the operational communication issues sit directly with the business owner or the leader of that business. That's a similar setting, but just on a single business size. So those folks really are the ones that I have a heart for the greatest, because that's where I can make the most difference. When those teams experience tension, when miscommunication or misunderstanding hinders their collaboration or causes them to have to do rework, those kinds of things, that's where understanding communication in a deeper way and investing some time and energy into growing my communication skills, that can really pay off in that sort of team setting. So those teams typically would range from maybe 10 to 30 people. You're looking at office managers, you're looking at section managers, you're looking at leaders who are overseeing delivery staff, for example, maybe the warehouse team, or maybe it's the field staff, the technicians who are out on the field working for the customers, or the agents who are dealing with the customer for their renewals each year, those kinds of things. And the core problem in that setting, the setting I've described, the core problem there is that any miscommunication creates a tension within the organization, within those teams, tension between departments, mistakes that get made. Then you begin to get into maybe emotional friction. If you've got leaders in different teams of different departments, I was working with a client a few months ago where the leader of one particular team was having a real difficulty with the office manager because their communication styles differed and they kept missing each other when they had to convey important information, when they had to be able to collaborate, when they couldn't afford to make a mistake in the way they were handling a customer's request. The customer's request would maybe come into the office, but it was the field team leader that was responsible for putting that into practice. And so those areas of collaboration are really where understanding communication can really make a difference. So that core problem of miscommunication can always lead to breakdown in teamwork, and especially when it causes emotional friction between key employees. As business leaders and business owners, we really need to address that, because the issue isn't a personality conflict, and the issue is not a lack of commitment or a lack of effort on the part of either of the people. It's purely a lack of understanding of how different people communicate and then how to adapt to those differences. So we turn differences from being obstacles, turn them into strengths. And there is such a reward from making that happen. There's such a benefit to the company when we can remove those areas of miscommunication. So let's talk about how we would do that. What help works? What is it that we want to shift? What is it we want to change? We want to change from there being tension between departments to a smoother collaboration. That can come when the leaders of the different departments understand all of the 7 communication styles. Because a leader of a department who's able to adapt both to the other leaders in other departments, but also to the people in their own department, you can lead your own people well, and you can be collaborative with the other departments at a deeper level when you understand the potential pitfalls that you can turn into strengths of the differences in your communication styles. I'm thinking of one setting where we did some workshops with the different teams in a particular company, and the guy who was the leader of the sales effort saw such a change in the way he was able to bring people in, that he was also then able to change the way he communicated, because the folks he was passing those new clients, those new customers onto, were much more task oriented than they were persuasion oriented. And so he was able to switch communication styles as he's passing on a lead or a potential customer or a new sale to the departments that had to then action the customer's needs. He was able to switch into practical detail. He was able to switch into task orientation and action orientation rather than persuasion. Because he'd learned communication styles, the friction between those two departments, sales and then the delivery departments, those areas of friction, those areas of misunderstanding were dramatically reduced. And the customers were the ones who benefited, and therefore the company's bottom line followed along. There was a definite benefit straight away. So we want to shift that tension into understanding so that there can be a smoother collaboration. And then the second thing to catch is to look in more detail at the communication styles when there's overlap, when there needs to be handoff from one department to another. We want to zero in on the areas where there are repeated misunderstandings. And I use a process I call communication forensics to zero in on why is there a repeated misunderstanding? What can we change to avoid that happening in the future? Because once we get the expectations clearer, once we can adjust the way that we do things, maybe it's a standard operating procedure that needs to be adapted. Maybe it's the way that a person delivers the information that can be adapted. But if we can reduce those repeated misunderstandings, then there are going to be clearer expectations as there's a handoff from one department to another. Clarity of purpose, clarity of result, clarity of outcome, all of those things really help to reduce that distress at the departmental level. And then the third area that I love to zero in on is the individuals who are right in the heart of some of that misunderstanding, that tension. And so working with an individual department leader or an office manager, somebody who is constantly bumping up against somebody else, there's emotional distress for that person that they're not able to be understood. They're not able to get their priorities met. They're not able to pass on what they need to convey in a way that the other person can receive it. Or maybe their staff in their team are not catching it because they're using a style that isn't connecting. So reducing that emotional distress, therefore reducing conflict, but also reducing withdrawal. We've talked on other episodes about how withdrawal is just as dangerous for a team and for a company as conflict is. They're two sides of the same coin. In both cases, we're missing out on what that person has to offer to the challenge we're facing or to the project we're completing. And so we get to fewer mistakes and less rework when we can address those issues. And it's so vital that the team can achieve that coordination, that smooth communication that enables them to work together, everybody benefits when that happens. A coordinated team dynamic is what my desire is for every business that I work with. And that's so often what we can achieve by looking at those specific areas that we can help with, whether it's the friction between departments, whether it's the specific causes of misunderstandings and errors, or whether it's the emotional toll on the individuals involved. All of those areas really will make a difference. So what does that look like? Well, the way that I'll tackle this is fairly consistent with any business, whatever the business is, because the problems are solved in the same way. You start with a personal assessment. Each person who's involved, how are they wired? What strengths are they bringing? But what are the potential pitfalls of those strengths if I don't learn to adapt to others who are different? But then also team learning, bringing the leaders of the teams together, helping them to learn how to communicate with their teams, bringing each team together, helping them to see how each one has something different to contribute to the team's goals. So team learning about how each of those 7 styles operate. What does our team look like through the lens of these 7 styles? Again, another example, I did a workshop with one particular team. This was a service team in a home services business. And as I was talking about the different languages and explaining that the customers all have all 7 languages, but each home you walk into, the homeowner, the customer in that setting is going to lead with one particular style. And these are the distress flares, because when you're in a home services business, you're always dealing with people who are in distress. They need this fixed or that problem solved. And this is the distress flare for this particular language. And all of I think it was 8 people around the table, all of them at the very same moment said, so-and-so. They came out with one specific customer who that week or that month had been the biggest challenge for that team. And all of them said, oh, this is the key to helping that customer. Now we understand it's this communication style is in distress. If we approach it in this way, that will make a difference. It was a huge breakthrough for that whole team. And I love it when that sort of thing happens. So team learning is the second step of how to help resolve some of these things. And then as you grow your team learning, you get stronger and stronger day by day, week by week in adaptation, because then you actually get to boost one another on the team. You call out the good in each other because you understand what each one is bringing. You get to see, hey, we really need this. So in the example I just gave you, they immediately were able to spot which of the members of the team were able to help this particular person with the needs that that person would have because of their primary communication style in solving the issue that the team was working on in that person's home. And so I think they actually made sure that service operative, that technician was the one who was sent the very next time to meet with that homeowner, was able to connect with the homeowner more effectively than other team members had been able to in the past. And everything changed because they understood those communication styles. So adaptation, boosting one another's strengths in that way really gives life to a team. It energizes a team. It's like a shot of caffeine into that team's teamwork ethos. And then finally, as the leader of that team was able to apply the communication style understandings intentionally at the team level, for future customers, they're able to say, hey, I think this customer, from the conversation I had on the phone, I'm sensing this is probably the style we need to use as we connect with that customer. Whoever it is, whichever technician, whichever person on the team, you'd be a great fit for this one. Choosing how to fit your team members to the needs is a huge benefit of understanding communication styles in that way. So that's my heart, is to see those teams that so often struggle because they're kind of caught in the middle. They're not big enough to have the corporate backing and all of the departmental insight that a big corporation would be able to offer. But because they're able to understand communication styles, they see a huge difference. It makes a big difference in a mid-sized business when everything will run smoothly, doesn't it? So I'm hoping that some of you listening to this will know folks who could benefit from that. I'd love to be involved in helping them grow their communication mastery and to see the fruit of understanding different communication styles in your business, in your setting, so that you can know the pleasure of flourishing rather than struggling. So let me know how I can help you, and I'll see you back here next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback.